About 18 years old when you wrote Porn Generation. Where did this book come from?
I started it when I was 18 years old. I really wrote it when I was about 20. It was right after Brainwashed. This book came from, I would say, moral opprobrium about what I'd seen on campus, as well as what I was seeing in the culture. As an Orthodox Jew and someone who's a deep religious believer, I was upset with the kind of culture that's been awash in not only basic immorality, but in imagery that I felt was damaging to teenagers, imagery that I felt was damaging to young adults, and a culture that tries to inculcate perennial adolescence in the American population, that makes you feel that avoiding responsibility is almost a sort of responsibility. You have a moral superiority if you are promiscuous as opposed to if you are a virgin. There's a lot of pressure to participate in culturally approved of activities which generally involve exploring yourself. And exploring yourself invariably ends up being something that your parents would not want you to do, and generally it involves withdrawing money from your parents' ATM account in order for you to do something that your parents would not want you to do. So that was what I objected to, and that's what I wrote about in Porn Generation, which revolves around the sexual sexual liberation of the American population, ranging from pop music to movies to magazines to what happens on campus.
Portrayal of sexual activity on screen is not simply about telling a story or enlightening viewers. It's about legitimizing the behavior. When increasingly younger teens are exposed to softcore pornography on the big screen, there is a cultural result.
And you have to give permission to teenagers to do something. I mean, how is it that teenagers decide suddenly that it's okay to participate in certain activities when it wasn't okay before? When you subsidize an activity, you get more of it. Maybe we've decided as a society that it's okay to subsidize some of these activities, but there is a tremendous impact in terms of that. I mean, the most obvious example you can use for something like this is the impact of the culture's acceptance of, for example, single motherhood. The culture's unwed motherhood. The culture has largely accepted unwed motherhood. You may think that's a good thing. You may think that's a bad thing. It's certainly become a more common thing. In the black community, when the Civil Rights Act was passed, the unwed motherhood rate was somewhere near 30%. Now it's 72%. In the white community, it was in low single digits. Now it's up to 40%. That's a tremendous increase in a pretty short period of time, and that's largely due to a culture that has decided that it is no longer important to regulate your sexual urges. In fact, you're almost glorified if you participate in the animal as opposed to containing it. The religious viewpoint was always, at least in Judaism, was always that sexual activity is a wonderful thing, provided that it's within certain boundaries, namely the boundaries of marriage. But when it's liberated from that, all it ends up doing is hollowing you out as a person. One of the things I object to in Porn Generation, I thought this was an original feminist point, is that men should not act like pigs. Unfortunately, the feminist movement sort of came along and noted, rightly, that men act like pigs. And instead of saying men ought to act more morally, they said, okay, now everyone should act immorally in the name of equality. And that's had a really marked ramification, especially for young women.